And Reverend Graylin Hagler, if you can talk about what this truce would mean as a minister in Washington, D.C. and senior advisor to the Fellowship of Reconciliation, it seems that in the United States, this is unlike even the media in France, for example, in Germany, that negotiation is viewed as capitulation. In other places, it's viewed as how to save the planet. But talk about what it would look like here and what your response was to yesterday's joint session of Congress, to the plea that President Zelensky made with his people under fire across Ukraine, what it means for President Biden to agree to send this Patriot missile system. It clearly, Zelensky, to laughter, has said he'll be asking for more.
Yes, well, thanks, Amy. And what I want to start out with is by saying the Fellowship of Reconciliation is the oldest peace and justice organization and continues to try to lift up an alternative vision of what we need to, how we need to respond as a people. One thing that we know is that wars create carnage, and wars create an atmosphere where basically the manufacturers of weaponry and those who struggle to try to enlarge empire grow rich, while people who are caught up in the conflict grow poor. Carnage visits them. There's basic destruction. We believe that there's an alternative way, and that alternative way comes out of discussion. Because really, when you talk about discussion or a truce, you're talking about a battle for the soul, whether the soul can actually commune with another soul and produce a more just world, a world that's not built upon conflict and pain and aggression. What we're looking at is in 1914, on Christmas Eve, in World War I, people came out of the trenches, combatants, and celebrated for a moment an atmosphere of peace. And we're saying that that history is speaking to us right now and calling upon us right now to create an atmosphere where we can begin the road towards peace and reconciliation, because the issue is weapons are not going to take us there, and combatants are not going to take us there. It's only when we sit down and say, enough is enough, and we need to reason from the heart and the spirit of justice.
April, to keep fighting for the long run, the U.S. Congress passed an enormous $40 billion aid package to help Ukraine militarily and economically to fight a long war. Not a single Democrat opposed the bill, including Senator Bernie Sanders and the most progressive House Democrats, although 11 Republican senators and 57 House Republicans voted against it, you said. There's also discussion that this moment that President Biden and President Zelensky have seized for Zelensky's joint session of Congress address is right before the House changes hands to Republicans, because a number of Republicans, not clear if the House Speaker will be McCarthy, are demanding that this money and weapons flow stop. How do you feel as a progressive anti-war activist? Two things: being allied with far-right Republicans, and secondly, being called by some a Russian apologist.
I feel that if I were in Russia, I would be in jail for protesting this war. I also feel terrible that my Congress people in the Progressive Caucus were cowed and silenced. I think the 30 who signed on that letter, in their heart of hearts, probably believe that negotiations is the only way. And we have to pressure them more to come out and say that their original stance was right, just as Congressman Ro Khanna stood by that stance on his national television and CNN and got tremendous support for it. We in the Peace in Ukraine Coalition have been putting pressure on those 30 congresspeople to come back out and say, yes, negotiations is the right thing. Yes, a Christmas truce would be a wonderful thing. So it's our job to put the pressure on our members of Congress, whether they're Republican or Democrat, Democrat, to come out with the only rational position right now. The U.S., unfortunately, in the Biden administration, has been against negotiations, nixed the negotiations that were going on in late March, early April, and told the Ukrainians, basically, you don't have to negotiate because we're going to keep pouring more weapons in. This is only helping the weapons companies who actually were the sponsors of a reception at the Ukrainian embassy in Washington, D.C. on December 8th, brought to you by Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, and Raytheon. They are the ones who are getting rich in this. The Ukrainians are suffering. The whole world is suffering from this. And we have to get Congress, all of Congress, to recognize this is not in the best interests of the American people or of the entire world.